Position to localize. Localize to kill. The guilt of Oscar Pistorius. The science of sound localization as forensic evidence is a yet undeveloped field and may receive its introduction here in this inspection of the recent shooting death and subsequent murder investigation of model Reva Steenkamp through a closed bathroom door. Defense attorney Barry Rue for the accused, famed Paralympic runner Oscar Pistorius, made the bold proclamation that there was no forensic evidence for murder. But in this case, he may have spoken too soon. If we were to endeavor to locate the origin of a particular sound source, we would look for a system with sufficient sophistication to allow its user to locate with pinpoint precision the site from which that sound originated. The human auditory system is an acutely developed system capable of complex calculations for sound source localization superior to the most sophisticated computers in the world and able to determine with mathematical precision the origin of a sound source. Sound localizations of the human auditory system have been extensively studied and is as well understood as any other science that involves physiological brain connections. The auditory system uses several cues for sound source localizations, including time and level differences between both ears, spectral information, timing analysis, correlation analysis, and pattern matching. The brain utilizes subtle differences to allow us to localize sounds. Localization can be described in terms of three-dimensional positions: the azimuth or horizontal angle, the elevation or vertical angle, and the distance for static sounds or velocity for moving sounds. The azimuth of a sound is signaled by the difference in arrival times between the ears, by the relative amplitude of high-frequency sounds, the shadow effect, and by the asymmetrical spectral reflections from various parts of our bodies, including torso, shoulders, and pinnae. The distance cues are the loss of amplitude, the loss of high frequencies, and the ratio of the direct signal to the reverberated signal. Depending on where the source is located, our head acts as a barrier to change the timbre, intensity, and spectral qualities of the sound, helping the brain oriented where the sound emanated from. These minute differences between the two ears are known as interaural cues. Localization accuracy or inaccuracy is as little as 1 degree for sources in front of the listener and 15 degrees for sources to the sides. Humans can discern interaural time differences of 10 microseconds or less. It is the positioning of oneself to decrease this margin of error for greater localization accuracy that is the sop in which the guilty's hand is found, as it reveals the intention and deliberation of the killer. It is the accuracy of the shots through the closed door that demonstrate the use of sound localization, as only audio stimulation of sufficient duration could provide Oscar Pistorius enough sensory evidence to correctly determine his shooting victim's placement and position. No random shots were taken that night. 3 out of 4 shots found their target with deadly accuracy. Oscar Pistorius offers no scenario that included any verbal exchanges by a supposed intruder, yet a verbal exchange would be necessary for the listener to create a cognitive map, a mental picture, imagery accurate enough to precisely target the victim. We know that audio signals were sent, received, and responded to that night, as it would have been impossible to locate the victim so precisely without them. There could have been no positions for shooting taken, no adjustments made that did not first require complex audio-spatial processing. At no time did Oscar Pistorius not benefit from thousands of a second calculations that are the brain's continual function and purpose. At no time did Oscar Pistorius' brain not offer sound location triangulation for precise spatial representation of the eventual shooting victim. In fact, the opposite is profoundly and precisely true, that Oscar Pistorius responded to a precise set of computation using audio skills that had been sharpened and honed over a lifetime of use for precision employment. That exact measurements and adjustments were taken using 2 sets of cycle processors, those received and processed as a choice of will, and those received and processed in spite of it, demonstrating unequivocally that sound localization had been deliberately employed and utilized. This deliberation reveals intent. At what time Oscar Pistorius responded voluntarily to sensory perception, he became guilty of intent. His intentional choice of options reveals what he knew, and that he knew who the eventual shooting victim was. No friendly conversation would have resulted in a shooting death. One had to have ensued that was bitter enough that it caused Oscar Pistorius to localize and kill Reva Steenkamp. As Oscar Pistorius positioned himself to localize the sound coming from his bathroom that night, his intention is revealed: to target and kill the source of that sound. We know from the accuracy of the shots and from the angle from which they were fired that this could be no less than 100% true. Intention reveals the nature of the conversation. Only betrayal is a strong enough sensation to cause a man to abandon reason and kill the woman he loves. We know that Reva Steenkamp had met with a former boyfriend only days before the shooting. Oscar Pistorius' brain was indeed offering his mind input that night for selective processing, i.e. choices, which his mind then referred to his heart for yet another set of complex equations where feelings are considered and the will is unrestrained. This is also where regret and remorse reside, and where Oscar Pistorius will spend the rest of his life in a cruel maze of unsolvable algorithms, forever second-guessing the choices of that night.